Alright, so, welcome back. Today we're talking about equalative adverbs. We're also going to talk about comparative and superlative adverbs. So, a lot of forms to talk about today. But first, what I'd like to do is a little adverb review. So, if you want, maybe pause the video right now. I want you to look at these three sentences. And I want you to think about what are the adverbs in these sentences. So 1, 2, and 3. So once you've paused it, I'm hoping you have, we're going to go through now and I will show you. And hopefully the adverbs that you found are the same as the ones I show you. So, he runs fast. Has only one adverb, fast. And it talks about, or it modifies, the verb run. Okay, so fast talks about runs. In our second sentence, hopefully you found two adverbs. The first, also fast, and fast modifies the verb runs. The second one is very. And very is an adverb of degree. Right? It makes it sound like it's more. Very fast, not just fast. So here we have two adverbs. One of them modifies the verb. The other one modifies the adverb. And finally, a sentence that I'm sure many of you agree with, the Michigan test is absolutely difficult. Here, the only adverb is absolutely. But this adverb is modifying difficult. And difficult is an adjective. Right? It describes the Michigan test. Okay, so hopefully you found these four adverbs in the sentences. Now, we're going to talk about equalative adverbs. Last week, right, 2 chapters ago, we talked about equalative adjectives, and the rules are basically the same. We use as, adverb as, to compare two actions and show how they are the same. So for example, I studied just as hard as she studied. Here, you'll notice that our verb is study. What makes this form different is that these verbs that we use are action verbs. With our equalative adjective, we use the be verb. But here, we use studied, which is an action verb. So I studied just as hard as. And hard is our adverb. I studied just as hard as she studied. Now, this is a very long sentence, and what happens in English is we try to shorten our sentences as much as we can. So if we are comparing the same action, which you can see here, we will sometimes change the second verb, and we'll say, we'll use to do. So I studied just as hard as she did. And sometimes it's more informal. We'll actually change this whole thing, she did or she studied, to the object pronoun. And we'll say, I studied just as hard as her. The one that's the most common is did. I studied just as hard as she did. you'll notice that we also have just here. And we talked about this before. Just, what it does is it adds emphasis to the comparison. It makes it stronger. So I studied just as hard as she did, not less. Okay. And again, up here, you can see I've put not. We also use not as adverb as. And we use this to show that things are not equal. Now, when we use not, you'll notice right here, we also have the auxiliary do, like any action verb. If I say, I ran to the store, the negative form is I didn't run to the store. So it's just the same here. We have our auxiliary, our negative, and then our verb in base form. I didn't study, or he didn't study, as hard as her. Or he didn't study as hard as she did. So here we have compared two actions to say if they are the same or not. The final point we'll talk about for equalative adverbs is some verbs are transitive verbs. That means that they have to have an object. For example, if I said to you, I saw, you would wonder, what did you see? Because it's not a complete idea to say I saw. I need an object. I saw a movie. With our equalative, it makes it a little more complicated. We do not put the equalative between a transitive verb and its direct object. So what I want you to do is look at these two sentences, and in your mind, which one is correct for this rule? Is it the first one? I studied the notes as hard as she did? Or is it the second one? I studied as hard as she did the notes. If you said number one, you're correct. Number two is not correct because study is our verb, and what did I study? I studied the notes. That is our direct object. And then we have our equalative, as hard as. Okay. So these are our equalative adverbs. Now what we'll do is we'll move on and we'll take a look at the next few forms.